The white Rolls-Royce Ghost pulled up to Mount Zion Baptist Church like a dream floating on wheels. I watched through the tinted window as the guests on the church steps turned to look. Some had their phones out already, taking pictures of the car before they even knew who was inside. My driver, Jerome, a professional man I'd hired for the day, came around to open my door. 4 bodyguards stepped out first. Marcus, the head of security, offered me his hand. "You ready, Ms. Price?" he asked quietly. I took a deep breath. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They had shaken that night 3 months ago when Darius called me. They had shaken when I read the text messages he'd sent to his friends, the ones my cousin Rochelle had shown me. But today my hands were steady as a rock. "I'm ready," I said. The champagne-colored gown I wore cost more than Darius made in 2 months. My jewelry was real. Everything about me was real now. The success, the money, the power. But what Darius didn't know was that I'd always been real. I'd always had worth. He just couldn't see it when I was cleaning office buildings at night to pay his college tuition. I stepped out of the car, and the afternoon sun hit me like a spotlight. That's when I saw him. Darius stood on the church steps in his expensive tuxedo, the one I knew his fiancée Kennedy's parents had paid for. His mouth fell open, his eyes went wide, and then, right there in front of 200 guests, my son's legs gave out from under him. He dropped to his knees on the concrete steps. Kennedy, his bride, grabbed his arm. Baby, what's wrong?" But Darius wasn't looking at her. He was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost, or maybe like he'd seen the truth for the first time in his life. I walked forward, my heels clicking on the pavement. Marcus and the other bodyguards walked with me, forming a protective circle. The guests parted like the Red Sea. "Hello, Darius," I said calmly. "Thank you for the invitation." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started. Back to 3 months ago, when I was still Vanessa Price, the invisible woman. The one people looked past, the one my own son had learned to be ashamed of. I was 52 years old, and I'd spent 30 years of my life cleaning. I cleaned office buildings, I cleaned houses, I cleaned churches, I cleaned toilets and floors and windows until my knees ached and my hands were raw. And I did it all for one reason: Darius, my baby boy, my only child. His father, Raymond, had left when Darius was 3 years old. Just walked out one Sunday morning and never came back. I heard through the family that he'd moved to Atlanta, started a new life, got a new wife and new kids. He sent child support when he remembered, which was almost never. So it was just me and Darius against the world. I worked 3 jobs sometimes. During the day, I cleaned houses in the wealthy neighborhoods. In the evening, I worked at a grocery store. At night, from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., I cleaned office buildings downtown. I'd sleep from 7 in the morning until noon, then start all over again. But I never let Darius see me struggle. I made sure he had good clothes, even if I got them from the thrift store and altered them myself. I made sure he had birthday parties. I made sure he could play basketball in the youth league. I made sure he went to a good school. When he got accepted to Morehouse College, I cried for 2 hours. My baby was going to one of the best historically Black colleges in the country. I was so proud I could barely breathe. I worked even harder to pay for it. I took out loans. I used every penny I had. When my sister Beverly told me I was crazy, that Darius could go to community college first, I told her that my son deserved the best. He was smart. He was special. He was going to make something of himself. And he did. He graduated with honors. He got a good job at a marketing firm. He moved into a nice apartment. He started dating Kennedy, a beautiful girl whose family owned 3 car dealerships in Atlanta. I was so happy for him. That's when things started to change. At first, it was small things. He stopped calling as often. When I called him, he'd sound rushed, distracted. He stopped coming home for Sunday dinners. He said he was busy with work, busy with Kennedy's family events, busy with his new life. That's okay, baby, I told him. I understand. You're building your future. Then he stopped inviting me to meet his friends. Kennedy's family had a big barbecue, and he didn't tell me about it until after. When I asked why, he got defensive. Mom, it was just a casual thing. You wouldn't have fit in. Those words stung, but I swallowed the pain. I told myself he didn't mean it the way it sounded. The real breaking point came at Kennedy's birthday party 6 months ago. Darius had finally invited me to meet Kennedy's family. I was so excited. I bought a new dress, well, new to me, from the thrift store. And I did my hair. I borrowed my cousin Rochelle's car because mine wasn't reliable. I showed up at this beautiful house in Buckhead with columns and a circular driveway and flowers everywhere. There were maybe 40 people there, all dressed in expensive clothes, holding wine glasses, talking and laughing. I felt out of place immediately, but I held my head high. I'd worked hard my whole life. I had nothing to be ashamed of. Kennedy's mother, Patricia, greeted me at the door. She looked me up and down, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Judgment, disdain. "You must be Vanessa," she said, her voice syrupy sweet but fake. "Darius has told us so much about you." I doubted that was true. Darius appeared, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, Mom, you made it." "Of course I made it, baby. I wouldn't miss meeting your girlfriend's family." The party was awkward from the start. Kennedy's father, Robert, asked me what I did for a living. When I told him I was in cleaning services, I saw him exchange a look with his wife. Darius looked at the floor. "Cleaning services," Robert repeated. "That's nice. Hard work, I'm sure." "Very hard," I said, lifting my chin. "But honest work. It put my son through Morehouse." I thought that would earn some respect, but instead, Patricia said, "Oh, did Darius get scholarships then?" "Some," I said. "I covered the rest." "On a cleaning salary?" She sounded skeptical. "Yes, ma'am. I worked 3 jobs." The conversation moved on, but I felt the judgment hanging in the air like smoke. Later that night, I overheard Kennedy's mother talking to her friends in the kitchen. I'd gone to get some water, and they didn't know I was in the hallway. "Can you imagine?" Patricia was saying. "The boy's mother is a cleaning lady. I mean, I'm not trying to be classist, but Kennedy could do so much better. What kind of family is she marrying into?" "Maybe the boy will distance himself," one of her friends said. "Once they're married, he won't have to bring her around much." They laughed. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces right there in that hallway. I left the party early. making excuses about not feeling well. Darius barely seemed to notice. That night, I cried myself to sleep, not because of what Kennedy's mother said. I'd dealt with people looking down on me my whole life. I cried because Darius hadn't defended me. He'd just stood there, embarrassed by his own mother. The next few months were worse. Darius stopped calling altogether. When I reached out, he was cold, brief. He never invited me over. He never came to see me. Then, 3 months ago, I got the call. It was a Tuesday night. I was exhausted from working a double shift, and I was about to go to bed when my phone rang. Darius's name flashed on the screen. "Baby," I answered, so happy to hear from him. "How are you?" "Hey, Mom." His voice was flat. "I'm calling because Kennedy and I are getting married." My heart soared. "Oh, Darius, that's wonderful. Congratulations, baby. When's the wedding?" 3 months from now, June 15th. "That's so soon, but that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you." There was a pause. Then he said, "We're sending you an invitation. It's going to be a big wedding. Kennedy's family is handling most of it." "Of course, baby. Whatever you need. I'm just so proud of you." Another pause. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Mom, I need you to understand something. This is Kennedy's day, her family's day. It's going to be very upscale, very elegant, so just be appropriate, okay?" "What do you mean, be appropriate?" "You know what I mean. Don't embarrass me. Don't talk about cleaning toilets or working night shifts. Just try to blend in." I couldn't breathe. "Darius, are you ashamed of me? I'm not having this conversation. Just be there, look nice, and don't make a scene. Can you do that?" I should have told him off right then. I should have told him that I raised him better than this, that I sacrificed everything for him, that he had no right to talk to me this way. But I didn't. I just said, "Okay, baby, I'll be there." "Good, we'll send the invitation." He hung up. I sat on my couch in my tiny apartment and stared at the wall. That's when my cousin Rochelle called. Rochelle worked in IT, and she was good with computers, real good. "Nessa," she said, her voice tight, "you sitting down?" "What's wrong?" "I need to show you something. I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, Rochelle was at my door with her laptop. She sat down next to me and pulled up some screenshots. "Remember I told you my daughter goes to the gym with Kennedy?" Rochelle said. "Yeah?" "Well, my daughter follows Kennedy on Instagram. And Kennedy's account is private, but my daughter's friends with her, so she sees everything." Rochelle took a breath. "Nessa, Kennedy posted in her close friend's story about your call with Darius. She showed me the screenshot. It was a picture of Kennedy and Darius together, looking happy. The caption said, 'Darius finally told his mom about the wedding. She sounded so pathetic on the phone. I can't wait for everyone to see her try to fit in at our upscale wedding.' Darius said it'll be hilarious watching her try to act like she belongs. At least we'll get some funny stories out of it." I read it 3 times, then Rochelle showed me more. Text messages between Darius and his friends that Kennedy had screenshotted and shared. "Darius told my mom about the wedding. This is going to be a disaster." His friend, "Why'd you even invite her?" Darius, "Kennedy's family insisted we had to, for appearances, but I told her to keep it low-key. Last thing I need is her talking about scrubbing floors at my wedding." His friend, "Brutal man, at least the open bar will be good. Darius. Yeah. And hey, might as well get some entertainment out of it. My mom showing up in her Goodwill dress is gonna be comedy gold. Kennedy's friends are already taking bets on what embarrassing thing she'll do. I stopped reading. I couldn't see the screen anymore through my tears. Nessa, Rochelle said softly, putting her arm around me. I'm so sorry. I debated showing you this, but you needed to know what kind of person your son has become. I cried for hours that night. I cried for the little boy I'd raised, who used to tell me I was the best mama in the world. I cried for all the years I'd sacrificed, all the nights I'd worked until my body screamed in pain. I cried for the daughter-in-law who thought I was a joke, and the son who was ashamed of the woman who'd given him everything. But then something inside me shifted. I stopped crying and got angry. No, not angry, determined. I wiped my face and looked at Rochelle. I need to tell you something I've never told anyone. Rochelle looked confused. What? You know how I've been cleaning offices at night for 30 years? Yeah? Well, 20 years ago, I started cleaning the offices for a small tech startup. Just 3 guys in a tiny space. They were nice to me, treated me like a person, not like furniture. We'd talk sometimes when I was cleaning. They told me about their dreams, their business plans. Okay. One day, the owner, his name was David Chen, asked me if I wanted to invest. They were looking for small investors to help them grow. He said even $100 would help. Rochelle's eyes widened. Nessa, you didn't. I did. I gave him $500. It was everything I'd saved that month. He gave me a contract, made it official, said I owned a tiny percentage of the company. I smiled. I forgot about it, honestly. I was too busy working and raising Darius. The company moved to bigger offices after a few years, and I stopped cleaning there, lost touch with David. And 3 weeks ago, I got a letter from a law firm. Rochelle, that little tech startup, it just got bought by Google. Rochelle's mouth fell open. My tiny investment, my tiny percentage of the company, it's worth $4.7 million. The number hung in the air between us. 4.7. Rochelle couldn't finish the sentence. Million, I said. The money hit my account last week. I've been sitting on it, trying to figure out what to do. And now, I looked at Kennedy's Instagram post again. Now I know exactly what to do. Rochelle started laughing. Then I started laughing. We laughed until we cried, but this time the tears were different. Oh, Nessa, Rochelle said, wiping her eyes. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Over the next 3 months, I planned. I planned like my life depended on it. First, I went to the bank and confirmed the money was real. $4.7 million sitting in my account. I could barely comprehend it. Then I hired a financial advisor, a sharp woman named Diane, who helped me invest most of it wisely. But I kept a good amount liquid. For what I had planned, I bought a house, a beautiful house in a good neighborhood, with a porch and a garden and 3 bedrooms. I'd never owned a house before. I cried when I signed the papers. I quit my cleaning jobs, all of them. I walked into each place and gave my notice, and it felt like chains falling off my body. I hired a personal stylist, a woman named Simone, who took me shopping at stores I'd only ever walked past. She taught me about designers and fabrics, and how to carry myself like I owned every room I walked into. I got my hair done at a real salon, not just done, transformed. The stylist, a young woman named Tasha, gave me a silk press that made me look 10 years younger. I started working out with a trainer, not to change my body for anyone else, but to feel strong, powerful. And then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I made the final arrangements. I rented a Rolls-Royce Ghost, $400,000 worth of pure luxury. I hired 4 bodyguards from a professional security firm. Marcus, the head of security, had worked for celebrities and politicians. I had a custom gown made, champagne-colored, elegant, expensive. When I looked at myself in the mirror the day it was finished, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me, but she was me. She'd always been me, underneath the exhaustion and the shame and the invisibility. Rochelle came with me to every appointment, cheering me on. "Girl, you're going to break the internet," she kept saying. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep, not because I was nervous, but because I was ready. So ready. Darius hadn't called me once in 3 months, not to ask how I was, not to tell me any wedding details, nothing. The invitation had come in the mail, formal and cold. Mrs. Vanessa Price was invited to witness the union of Darius Raymond Price and Kennedy Marie Morrison. That was it. I RSVP'd yes. I didn't mention anything else. That morning, I got dressed slowly, carefully. Simone came over to help me with the final touches. Tasha did my hair and makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a queen. "You ready to reclaim your dignity?" Rochelle asked, squeezing my hand. "I've been ready," I said. The drive to the church felt both endless and too short. Jerome, my chum, my driver, kept the car smooth and steady. Marcus and the other bodyguards rode in a second car behind us. When we pulled up to Mount Zion Baptist Church, I saw the guest parking lot was full. This was a big wedding. Kennedy's family had spared no expense. That's when everything I told you at the beginning happened. I stepped out of the Rolls-Royce. Darius collapsed on the steps. Kennedy looked like she'd seen a ghost. The guests stared and whispered and pulled out their phones. I walked up those church steps like I owned them. Pastor Williams, who'd known me for years, stood at the church entrance. His mouth was hanging open. "Vanessa," he said, "is that you?" "It's me, Pastor," I said, smiling. "I'm here for my son's wedding." Darius was on his feet now, being held up by Kennedy and his groomsmen. His face had gone from pale to red. He looked furious and confused and scared all at once. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking. What are you doing?" "I'm attending your wedding, baby," I said calmly, "just like you invited me to." "Is there a problem?" Kennedy's mother appeared, looking me up and down with wide eyes. The judgment from before was gone, replaced by shock and confusion. "Vanessa," Patricia said carefully, "you look different." "Thank you," I said pleasantly. "Should we go inside? I believe there's a wedding about to start." The next hour was the most satisfying of my life. I walked into that church with my head held high. The bodyguards stayed outside. I didn't need them inside, they were just for effect. But my presence was enough. People couldn't stop staring. I heard the whispers. "Is that really Darius's mother? She came in a Rolls-Royce?" "I thought she was poor." Look at that dress. That's custom. Who is she really? I sat in the front row, right where the mother of the groom should sit. Darius kept looking back at me during the ceremony. He could barely focus on his own wedding. Kennedy kept glancing at me too, her perfect smile flickering. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll give them that. When Pastor Williams asked if anyone objected, I stayed silent. I wasn't here to ruin the wedding. I was here to reclaim my dignity. At the reception, things got interesting. It was held at a fancy country club, all white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers. I was seated at a table with some of Darius's distant relatives, people who'd barely spoken to me at family gatherings over the years because I was just the cleaning lady. They couldn't stop asking questions. Vanessa, what do you do now? Vanessa, how have you been? Vanessa, you look amazing. What's your secret? I smiled and gave vague answers. I've been very blessed, I said. God has a way of rewarding patience. Kennedy's father approached my table. Robert, who'd looked at me with such disdain at the birthday party. Vanessa, he said, his tone completely different from before. I wanted to apologize. I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot at Kennedy's birthday party. Oh? I said, sipping my champagne. I don't recall anything wrong. Well, I just wanted to say that you're clearly a woman of means, and I may have made some assumptions. You assumed I was poor, and therefore worthless, I said calmly. You weren't wrong about the first part. I was poor. I worked 3 jobs cleaning toilets and floors to put my son through college. But you were very wrong about the second part. I was never worthless. Robert's face turned red. I didn't mean... It's fine, I said, standing up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to speak with my son. I found Darius outside on the terrace, loosening his tie. He was alone, staring out at the golf course. Baby, I said softly. He turned around, and for a second, I saw my little boy, the one who used to hug my legs and tell me he loved me. But then his expression hardened. Who are you? He asked, his voice cold. Seriously, Mom, who are you? Where did all this come from? The car, the bodyguards, the dress? I'm the same person I've always been, I said. The woman who raised you, the woman who worked herself to the bone so you could have a better life. You're lying. You don't have money. You're a cleaning lady. I was a cleaning lady, I corrected, and there's no shame in that. But 20 years ago, I invested in a tech startup, $500. It was all I had that month, but the owner was kind to me, and I believed in him. That company just sold to Google. My investment is worth $4.7 million. Darius's eyes went wide. 4.7 million, I finished. The money came through 3 months ago, right around the time you called to invite me to your wedding, so Kennedy's friends could laugh at me. His face went pale again. Mom, I saw the texts, Darius. I saw Kennedy's Instagram posts. I know you invited me here to humiliate me, to embarrass me in front of your new family. I stepped closer. But here's what you forgot, baby. You can't embarrass someone who has nothing to be ashamed of. I worked hard my whole life. I raised a good son, or at least I thought I did. I have dignity. I have worth. And now, I have money too. Tears were running down his face. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. Kennedy's family, they made me feel like you had to be ashamed of where you came from, I said. like you had to choose between me and them." He nodded, sobbing now. "Then you made the wrong choice," I said quietly, "because real family doesn't make you choose. Real love doesn't require you to be ashamed. Please." "Someone. Paus fias saudamista na soam, please. Come so asimamo." "I'll make it right. I'll tell Kennedy's family." "You'll tell them what? That you're sorry for being embarrassed by your mother? That you regret trying to humiliate the woman who gave you everything?" I shook my head. "Darius, I didn't come here for an apology. I came here to show you who I am, who I've always been. I'm not the invisible woman you tried to hide. I'm your mother. And I am somebody." I turned to walk away, but he grabbed my hand. "Mom, please, don't leave like this. I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you." I looked at his hand holding mine, the same hand I used to hold when he was little, walking him to school. "I love you too, baby," I said, "but love isn't enough. You need to respect me. You need to value me. And until you can do that, really do that, not just because I have money now. I think we need some distance." I pulled my hand away and walked back inside. The rest of the reception was a blur. People kept approaching me, wanting to talk, wanting to know my story. Kennedy's mother tried to have a conversation with me, all fake smiles and compliments. I was polite but distant. When it was time for the mother-son dance, the DJ called for me and Darius to come to the floor. The whole room went quiet. I stood up and walked to the dance floor. Darius met me there, his eyes red from crying. The music started, some slow song about family and love. We danced, and he whispered, "I'm going to fix this, Mom. I promise. I'm going to be the son you deserve." "I hope so, baby," I whispered back, "because you're all I've got." When the song ended, I kissed his cheek and walked away. I gathered my things, thanked Pastor Williams for the beautiful ceremony, and headed to the exit. Marcus and the other bodyguards were waiting by the Rolls-Royce. "Ready to go, Ms. Price?" Marcus asked. "Yes," I said. "Take me home." As Jerome drove me away from the country club, I looked back one time. I could see the guests still milling around, the lights twinkling, the party continuing. But I was done. I'd made my point. I pulled out my phone and saw dozens of notifications. Text messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Facebook friend requests, people wanting to know my story. And one message from Rochelle. "Girl, you did it. I'm so proud of you. Call me when you get home." I smiled and leaned back in the leather seat. For the first time in 30 years, I felt free. But this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot, because 3 days later, something happened that changed everything again. 3 days after the wedding, I woke up to my phone ringing at 6 in the morning. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. "Hello? Mrs. Price? This is Detective Angela Morrison with the Atlanta Police Department. I need to speak with you about your son, Darius Price." My heart stopped. "Is he okay? What happened?" "He's fine, ma'am, but we need you to come down to the station. There's been an incident involving your son and his wife, and your name has come up. Can you come in today?" I was at the police station by 8 o'clock, my mind racing with possibilities. What could Darius have done? What did this have to do with me? Detective Morrison was a tall black woman in her 40s with kind eyes but a serious expression. She led me to a small room and closed the door. Mrs. Price, I want to be straight with you. Yesterday, Kennedy Price, your daughter-in-law, filed a police report claiming that you threatened her at the wedding. She also claims you've been harassing her family and making threatening phone calls. I felt like I'd been slapped. What? That's completely false. I haven't contacted Kennedy or her family at all since the wedding. I haven't made any threats. Detective Morrison nodded slowly. I thought it might be something like that. See, Kennedy's story doesn't quite add up. She claims you called her mother 15 times in 2 days, but when we asked for phone records, she suddenly got vague. She also claims you threatened to ruin their marriage, but multiple witnesses at the wedding, including the pastor, told us you were nothing but gracious. Then why am I here? Because I wanted to warn you, Detective Morrison said, leaning forward. Mrs. Price, I did some background checking. I know about your recent financial windfall. I also know that Kennedy's family business is in serious trouble. Their car dealerships are struggling and they're facing some major debt. When people get desperate for money, they do desperate things. My stomach dropped. You think they're trying to set me up for something? I think Kennedy saw you at that wedding and realized you have money, real money, and now she's trying to build a case, maybe for a restraining order, maybe for a lawsuit, I don't know. But I've seen this before. Someone makes false accusations, gets a restraining order, then sues for emotional distress, or they try to claim you're mentally unstable and convince your son to help them get access to your finances. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this. My own son wouldn't. Your son was willing to humiliate you at his own wedding, Detective Morrison said gently. I'm not saying he's behind this, but I am saying you need to protect yourself. She slid a card across the table. This is a lawyer I know, Keisha Bradford. She specializes in family law and estate protection. You need to call her today. Get your affairs in order, make sure all your money is protected, and document everything. Every interaction with your son or his wife from now on needs to be recorded or witnessed. I took the card with shaking hands. Thank you, Detective. I'm a mother too, she said. I know what it's like to sacrifice everything for your child. Don't let them take advantage of that. I left the police station feeling sick. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at Keisha Bradford's card. Finally, I called. Bradford Law, this is Keisha. Hi, Detective Morrison gave me your card. My name is Vanessa Price, and I think I need help. Keisha saw me that same afternoon. Her office was in a nice building downtown, with African art on the walls and family photos on her desk. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with natural hair styled in beautiful locks and a sharp business suit. Mrs. Price, she said, shaking my hand firmly. Angela Morrison called me this morning. She filled me in on the basics, but I want to hear everything from you. Start from the beginning. I told her everything. My whole life story came pouring out, raising Darius alone, working 3 jobs, the tech investment, the wedding, the texts I'd seen. Keisha listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, she sat back and let out a long breath. Okay, she said. Here's the situation. You're vulnerable right now. You have significant assets, no spouse, and 1 adult child who's already shown he's willing to betray you for social status. His wife's family is in financial trouble. That makes you a target. What do I do? First, we protect your assets. I'm going to help you set up a trust, something ironclad that nobody can touch. Second, we document everything, every phone call, every text, every interaction with Darius or Kennedy gets recorded and saved. Third, we prepare for the worst. What's the worst? The worst is that they try to have you declared incompetent. They claim you're mentally unstable, that you're squandering your money on ridiculous things like Rolls-Royces and bodyguards, and they petition the court to give them conservatorship over your finances. I felt cold all over. They can do that? They can try. They won't succeed because you're clearly competent and will have documentation to prove it. But they can make your life hell trying. Keisha leaned forward. Mrs. Price, Vanessa, I need you to be strong right now. Can you do that? I thought about all the years I'd been strong, all the nights I'd worked until I couldn't stand, all the times I'd gone without so Darius could have more. Yes, I said, I can be strong. Good, let's get to work. Over the next week, Keisha and I built a fortress around my assets. We set up an irrevocable trust with my niece, Rochelle's daughter Destiny, as a co-trustee. We documented everything about my mental state, my decision-making capacity, my financial literacy. We prepared affidavits from people who'd known me for years. During this time, Darius called me 5 times. I didn't answer. Keisha had told me not to have any contact without a witness or recording. On the 6th call, I finally answered and put him on speaker with Keisha in the room. Mom, please, Darius said, his voice desperate. We need to talk. Kennedy told me you've been threatening her family. That's a lie, I said calmly. I have not contacted Kennedy or her family at all. If she told you that, she's lying to you. Why would she lie? I don't know, baby, but I was at the police station last week because she filed a false report against me. If you don't believe me, you can call Detective Angela Morrison and ask her yourself. There was silence, then Kennedy's voice in the background. Darius, hang up. She's trying to manipulate you. Is Kennedy there with you? I asked. Yes, Darius said. Then I think this conversation is over. Darius, I love you, but I'm protecting myself now. If you want to have a relationship with me, it needs to be just you and me, without Kennedy feeding you lies. She's not. I hung up. Keisha nodded approvingly. Perfect. You stayed calm. You stated facts, and you set a boundary. 2 days later, I got served with papers. Kennedy and Darius were suing me for emotional distress, claiming that my extravagant display at their wedding had humiliated them and caused Kennedy to suffer anxiety attacks requiring medical treatment. They were asking for $250,000. I called Keisha immediately. I got served, I said. I know, they copied me on the filing. Don't worry, this lawsuit is nonsense and we're going to destroy it. But Vanessa, I need to tell you something. This is just the beginning. They're testing you, seeing if you'll settle to make it go away. I'm not giving them a penny, I said. Good, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to countersue for defamation and filing a frivolous lawsuit. And we're going to expose every lie they've told. The next Sunday, I went to church for the first time since the wedding. I'd been avoiding it, worried about what people would say. But Rochelle convinced me to go. Girl, you can't hide forever, she said. Besides, you got nothing to be ashamed of. Hold your head up. I walked into Mount Zion Baptist Church wearing a simple but elegant dress. The sanctuary was packed, like always, and I felt people's eyes on me immediately. But then something unexpected happened. Sister Margaret, an elderly woman who'd been at the church for 50 years, stood up and started clapping. Then Sister Johnson joined her, then Brother Williams. Within seconds, the entire congregation was on their feet, applauding. Pastor Williams came down from the pulpit, smiling. "Sister Vanessa," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "we are so glad to have you with us today. You are a blessing to this church and to this community." I started crying right there in the aisle. After the service, people surrounded me, not to gossip or judge, but to support me. "I heard what happened with your son," Sister Margaret said, holding my hands. "Baby, you did the right thing. Sometimes our children need to learn the hard way." "I raised 3 sons," Brother Johnson said, "and let me tell you, sometimes love means stepping back and letting them fall. Your boy needs to learn who he is without his mama propping him up." Pastor Williams pulled me aside. "Vanessa, can we talk in my office?" In his office, Pastor Williams offered me tea and sat down across from me. "I've been praying about your situation," he said, "and I feel led to tell you something. You know I counseled Darius and Kennedy before the wedding, right?" "I didn't know that." "I did. And I'm going to tell you something that I probably shouldn't, but I feel like the Lord is telling me you need to hear it." He paused. "During our sessions, Kennedy said some things that troubled me deeply. She talked about your son's potential and his earning capacity. She talked about building wealth and social status. She never once talked about love. And when I asked Darius what he loved about Kennedy, he couldn't give me a straight answer. He talked about her family's connections, her education, how good she looked on his arm. My heart ached. So it's not a real marriage. I don't know if it's real or not, but I do know that it's built on a shaky foundation. And Vanessa, I want you to know something else. When Darius told me he was embarrassed by you, yes, he told me that during counseling, I told him that a man who's ashamed of his mother is a man who's ashamed of himself. I told him that you were a woman of dignity and strength, and that he was making a mistake. He didn't listen. No, but maybe he will eventually. Pastor Williams squeezed my hand. "Stay strong, sister, and know that this church family has your back." I left church feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I had allies, I had support, I wasn't alone. That night, I was cooking dinner when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Darius standing there alone. I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "What are you doing here? Mom, please, can we talk? Just you and me?" I looked at him carefully. He looked terrible, tired, stressed, like he hadn't slept in days. "Where's Kennedy?" "She doesn't know I'm here. Please, Mom, just give me 10 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let him in. We sat in my living room, my new, beautiful living room in my new house, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Kennedy's lying," Darius finally said. "I know she's lying. I checked our phone records. You never called her mother. And I talked to people at the wedding. You didn't threaten anyone." "I know I didn't." I confronted Kennedy about it. She got defensive, said she was just trying to protect us, that you were clearly unstable, and we needed to establish a pattern of erratic behavior for when we... He stopped abruptly. "For when you what?" I asked. my voice cold. He looked at the floor. For when we petition for conservatorship. There it was, the truth. So you were planning to take my money, I said flatly. Not me. Kennedy's father. He's the one who suggested it. He said your behavior at the wedding proved you weren't mentally stable, that you were wasting money on stupid things, that as your only family, I had a responsibility to protect you from yourself. And you believed him. At first, I thought maybe he had a point. You showed up in a Rolls-Royce with bodyguards, Mom. It seemed crazy. It seemed crazy that the cleaning lady had money and knew how to spend it, I said bitterly. It seemed crazy that I wasn't the helpless victim you could pity anymore. That's not fair, isn't it? I stood up. Darius, you tried to humiliate me at your wedding. You invited me specifically so your wife and her friends could laugh at me. And now you're sitting here telling me that your father-in-law wants to take control of my money because I'm supposedly mentally unstable. What part of that is unfair? He was crying now, full-on sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. Kennedy's family, they got in my head. They made me feel like I had to be someone different, someone better than where I came from. And I believed them. I was so stupid. You were weak, I said. You let them make you weak. I know, and I hate myself for it. He looked up at me with red eyes. But Mom, I'm trying to fix it. I told Kennedy I wasn't going along with the conservatorship plan. I told her father to back off. I filed to drop the lawsuit. You did? Yes, today. That's why I came here. To tell you that I'm done. I'm done letting them use me to hurt you. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. What did Kennedy say when you told her you were dropping the lawsuit? Darius looked away. She didn't take it well. What does that mean? It means she told me that if I sided with you over her family, she'd divorce me and make sure I never saw any money from her family's business. She said I'd regret choosing you. And what did you say? He met my eyes. I said that you're my mother, that I chose wrong once, and I'm not doing it again. For the first time in months, I saw my son, my real son, the boy I raised. Did you mean it? I asked quietly. Yes, Mom, I meant it. I sat back down next to him. Darius, I need you to understand something. I forgive you, I love you, and I forgive you. But trust takes time to rebuild. You hurt me deeper than anyone ever has. And if you want a relationship with me, it has to be real. No more hiding me. No more being ashamed. No more choosing other people's approval over your own mother. I understand, he said, and I'll do whatever it takes. We sat there together, and for a moment, everything felt like it might be okay. But then my phone rang. It was Keisha. Vanessa, turn on the news, Channel 5, right now. I grabbed my remote and turned on the TV. There on the screen was Kennedy, sitting in a news studio, talking to a reporter. And I just want people to understand what we've been through, Kennedy was saying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My husband's mother has been harassing us since our wedding. She showed up with bodyguards and a luxury car, trying to intimidate us. She's been making threatening phone calls to my family. We've tried to handle this privately, but she's left us no choice. We're asking for a restraining order to protect ourselves from this unstable woman. The reporter's voice. And you say she recently came into money? Yes. and we're concerned she's being taken advantage of by people who want her money. We're only trying to protect her, but she's turned against her own family." I felt Darius tense next to me. "She's lying," he said. "Mom, she's lying on television." The segment ended with Kennedy's tearful face filling the screen, looking like a victim. My phone exploded with notifications, text messages, calls, social media alerts. The story was everywhere. Local woman accused of harassing son's new bride after lavish wedding display. I looked at Darius. "Your wife just declared war on me, on national television." His face was pale. "I'll fix this. I'll go on TV myself. I'll tell them the truth." "No," I said firmly. "You'll do nothing. This is my fight now." I called Keisha back. "Did you see it?" "I saw it. Vanessa, this is actually good for us." "How is this good?" "Because now she's made public statements that we can prove are false. She's dug her own grave. We're going to bury her in it." I looked at Darius, who was sitting with his head in his hands. "Keisha," I said, "prepare for battle. I'm not running from this anymore. We're taking this all the way." "That's what I wanted to hear. I'll file a motion first thing Monday morning. By the time we're done, Kennedy's going to regret ever crossing you." After I hung up, Darius looked at me. "Mom, what are you going to do?" I thought about Pastor William's words, about Sister Margaret's encouragement, about Detective Morrison's warning, about every single year I'd spent being invisible, being looked down on, being told I wasn't good enough. "I'm going to fight," I said, "for my dignity, for my truth, and for every mother out there who's been disrespected by the children they raised." Darius nodded slowly. "Whatever you need from me, I'm here." "Good," I said, "because you're going to testify. You're going to tell the truth about what Kennedy and her family planned to do. You're going to make this right." "I will," he said. "I promise." He left an hour later, and I sat in my living room, staring at my phone as the notifications kept coming. The story was going viral. People were taking sides. Some believed Kennedy, some believed me. But most people just wanted drama. I called Rochelle. "Girl, I saw the news," she said. "That woman is evil." "She made a mistake," I said calmly. "She pushed me too far." "What are you going to do?" I smiled. "I'm going to show her what happens when you come for a woman who has nothing left to lose." The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a photo of me from 30 years ago, cleaning an office building in my uniform. I was on my hands and knees scrubbing a floor. Someone had posted it online with the caption, "This is the wealthy woman claiming harassment. Just a cleaning lady who got lucky. She belongs on her knees." Below that, hundreds of comments mocking me, calling me names, saying I should go back to where I came from. Kennedy had found my old employment photos and was using them to humiliate me online. I stared at that photo for a long time. That woman on her knees. She was me. She was real. She'd worked hard. She'd sacrificed everything. And she had nothing to be ashamed of. I called Keisha. "I'm ready to go nuclear. Tell me what we need to do to destroy them." Keisha's voice was cold and determined. "I was hoping you'd say that, because I just got some very interesting information about Kennedy's family business. Vanessa, we're about to expose everything." Keisha came to my house that same morning with her laptop and a thick folder of documents. Rochelle was already there, having rushed over when I called her about the photo. "Okay," Keisha said, spreading papers across my dining table. "Here's what we found. Kennedy's family business, Morrison Luxury Auto Group, isn't just struggling, it's drowning. They're $3 million in debt. The IRS has liens on 2 of their 3 dealerships. They're being investigated for loan fraud and cooking their books." Rochelle leaned forward. "How did you find all this?" "Public records, mostly. Plus, I have a friend who's a forensic accountant. He did some digging." Keisha pulled out another document. "But here's the really interesting part. 6 months ago, before Darius even proposed to Kennedy, her father Robert reached out to a private investigator to do a background check on you, Vanessa." "On me? Why?" "Because he wanted to know if you had any assets worth going after. The PI came back with your employment history, all those cleaning jobs, and reported that you appeared to have no significant assets. But then, 3 months ago, right after your investment money came through, there were some public records filed: property purchase, vehicle registration. Robert found out about your windfall." I felt sick. "So Kennedy knew I had money when she married Darius? Not just knew. That's when they moved up the wedding date. It was originally planned for September. They pushed it to June, right after your money came through. And that's when the whole plan started." Keisha showed me a series of emails. "My investigator got these from a source inside their company. Robert emailed Kennedy telling her to secure the asset, meaning you, through Darius. They planned the whole thing. The humiliation at the wedding was supposed to make you look erratic. The false police report was supposed to establish you as unstable. The lawsuit was supposed to pressure you into settling. And if all that failed, the conservatorship was their endgame." Rochelle swore under her breath. "They married Darius for his mama's money." "Exactly," Keisha said, "and now we're going to prove it. In court, in front of everyone." 2 weeks later, we were sitting in a courtroom. Kennedy's lawsuit against me had been fast-tracked. Her father had used his connections to push it through, but Keisha said that was perfect for us. "The faster this goes, the less time they have to cover their tracks," she'd explained. The courtroom was packed. News cameras weren't allowed inside, but reporters filled the gallery. I saw faces I recognized, people from church, neighbors, even some of my old co-workers. Sister Margaret was there, giving me an encouraging nod. Darius sat on my side of the courtroom. When Kennedy saw him, her face went white, then red. The judge, an older black woman named Judge Patricia Henderson, called the court to order. "We're here for the case of Morrison Price versus Price," she said. "The plaintiffs are alleging emotional distress caused by the defendant's behavior at their wedding. Ms. Bradford, you're representing the defendant?" "Yes, Your Honor." Keisha stood up. "And we'll be presenting evidence that this entire lawsuit is a fraudulent scheme designed to extort money from my client." Kennedy's lawyer, a slick-looking white man named Richard Pemberton, jumped up. "Your Honor, that's a serious accusation. Then I'm sure Ms. Bradford has serious evidence," Judge Henderson said dryly. "Let's proceed." Kennedy's lawyer went first, presenting their case. Kennedy took the stand, and she was good. I'll give her that. She cried on cue, talked about how humiliated she felt when I showed up at her wedding like a spectacle, described the threatening phone calls that never happened. I just wanted a beautiful wedding day, she said, dabbing her eyes. And she turned it into a circus. She's been harassing my family ever since. We've tried to reach out with compassion, but she's refused all contact. When it was Keisha's turn to cross-examine, she stood up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Morrison Price," Keisha said, "you testified that Ms. Price made threatening phone calls to your mother. How many calls?" "At least 15, Kennedy said. "At least 15. And you have phone records to prove this?" Kennedy hesitated. "Well, my mother would have—" "Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, phone records from both Ms. Price's phone and Mrs. Patricia Morrison's phone for the relevant time period. As you can see, there are 0 calls between these numbers." The judge examined the records. "I see that. Mrs. Morrison Price, why did you testify under oath that calls were made when the phone records show otherwise?" Kennedy's face flushed. Maybe I was mistaken about the number. 15 is a pretty specific number to be mistaken about," Keisha said. "Let's move on. You also testified that Ms. Price showed up at your wedding like a spectacle. Can you explain what you mean by that?" "She arrived in a Rolls-Royce with bodyguards. It was completely inappropriate." "Inappropriate how? She was invited to the wedding, correct?" "Yes, and there's no dress code violation? She wasn't intoxicated or disruptive." "No, but the way she what? Looked too wealthy, too elegant, too successful?" Keisha's voice sharpened. "Mrs. Morrison Price, isn't it true that you expected Ms. Price to show up looking poor? That you and your friends had actually placed bets on what embarrassing thing she would do?" Kennedy's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! How is this relevant?" "It's relevant to establishing the plaintiff's true motive, Your Honor," Keisha said. "I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mrs. Morrison Price." Kennedy looked trapped. We were just joking." "I have screenshots of your Instagram close friends story," Keisha said, handing documents to the judge, "in which you specifically stated, and I quote, 'Can't wait for everyone to see her try to fit in at our upscale wedding.' Darius said it'll be hilarious watching her try to act like she belongs." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Henderson banged her gavel. Kennedy's face went pale. That was private." "But it was true, wasn't it? You invited Ms. Price to your wedding specifically to humiliate her. And when she showed up looking successful instead of pathetic, your plan backfired. So you filed this lawsuit to punish her." "That's not true." "Then let's talk about the conservatorship petition." Kennedy's lawyer stood up quickly. "Your Honor, there's no conservatorship petition filed in this case." "Not yet," Keisha said. "But there was one drafted, wasn't there, Mrs. Morrison Price? Your father's lawyer prepared the paperwork. It's dated 2 days after the wedding." She presented another document to the judge. "How did you get that?" Kennedy's lawyer demanded. "That's privileged. It was sent via unsecured email to multiple family members, including my client's son, which waives privilege," Keisha said smoothly. "Mrs. Morrison Price, isn't it true that you and your family planned to have Ms. Price declared mentally incompetent so you could access her $4.7 million? "No, we were trying to protect her." "Protect her from what? From enjoying the money she earned through her own investment?" "Money she received from a tech startup she invested in 20 years ago, while she was working 3 jobs to put her son through college." Keisha turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'd like to call my next witness, Darius Price. The courtroom went silent as Darius walked to the stand. He looked at Kennedy as he passed, and she mouthed something that looked like, "Don't you dare." He was sworn in, and Keisha approached gently. "Mr. Price, you're the son of the defendant, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you're married to the plaintiff?" "Yes." He paused. "But I've filed for divorce as of 3 days ago." Another eruption of whispers. Kennedy looked like she might faint. "Why did you file for divorce, Mr. Price?" "Because I found out the truth about why Kennedy wanted to marry me, about what her family planned to do to my mother." "Can you explain?" Darius took a deep breath. "After my mom showed up at the wedding, Kennedy's father took me aside. He told me that my mom was clearly mentally unstable, spending money recklessly, and that I needed to step in before she wasted it all. He had a lawyer there at my wedding reception with conservatorship papers ready to go. He said all I had to do was sign, testify that my mom was incompetent, and I'd be protecting her." "What did you say?" "At first, I was confused. My mom seemed fine to me, but Mr. Morrison kept pushing. He said things like, 'A cleaning lady doesn't know how to handle real money, and she'll be broke in a year if you don't step in.' He made it sound like I'd be a bad son if I didn't do it." "Did you eventually realize what was really happening?" "Yes. I overheard Mr. Morrison talking to Kennedy later that night. He said once they had control of my mom's money, they could use it to save their business. He said my mom would never even notice because they'd put her in a nice facility and she'd be taken care of. That's when I understood they didn't care about my mom. They just wanted her money." Kennedy stood up from her seat. "That's a lie. Darius, you're lying." "Sit down, Mrs. Morrison Price," Judge Henderson said firmly. Keisha continued, "Mr. Price, prior to the wedding, did you believe your mother was mentally incompetent?" "No. I was ashamed of her because she was poor, and I was stupid and prideful, but I never thought she was incompetent. And after seeing her at the wedding, I realized that my mom had always been exactly who she is now. Strong, dignified, smart. The only thing that changed was that she had money now, and people like Kennedy's family had to respect that, or at least pretend to, long enough to try to steal it." "Thank you, Mr. Price." Kennedy's lawyer tried to salvage things during his cross-examination, but Darius didn't budge. He told everything: the texts, the Instagram posts, the conversations he'd overheard. When it was my turn to testify, I was calm. Keisha asked me to tell my story, and I did. I talked about raising Darius alone, about working 3 jobs, about the investment I'd made in good faith 20 years ago. I talked about the wedding, about choosing to show up with dignity instead of shame. "Why did you arrive in a Rolls-Royce with bodyguards?" Keisha asked. "Because for 30 years I'd been invisible. People looked through me, looked past me, looked down on me. My own son had learned to be ashamed of me. And I decided that just once, just one time, I wanted to walk into a room and be seen. Not as someone's cleaning lady, not as someone to pity or mock, but as Vanessa Price, as somebody." I looked at Kennedy. "I'm sorry if my success made you uncomfortable, but I will never apologize for refusing to be humiliated." The courtroom was silent. Judge Henderson called a recess, and we waited for nearly an hour. When we came back, her expression was stern. "I've reviewed all the evidence," she said, "and I'm appalled. Mrs. Morrison Price, You have committed perjury in my courtroom. You have filed a frivolous lawsuit with the intent to extort money from the defendant. And based on the evidence presented, you and your family engaged in a conspiracy to defraud Ms. Price of her assets. Kennedy's lawyer tried to speak, but Judge Henderson held up her hand. I'm dismissing your lawsuit with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm awarding Ms. Price attorney's fees and costs, and I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. Kennedy burst into tears. Your Honor, please, you chose to come into my courtroom and lie under oath, Judge Henderson said. You chose to exploit a relationship with your husband for financial gain. You chose to target a woman whose only crime was working hard and succeeding. You made your choices, Mrs. Morrison Price. Now you'll live with the consequences. She banged her gavel. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors. People from my side were cheering. I saw Sister Margaret crying happy tears. Keisha hugged me. We did it. We destroyed them. Kennedy was being led out by her lawyer, sobbing. Her parents looked devastated. As they passed, Kennedy's father, Robert, glared at me. This isn't over, he muttered. Yes, it is, I said calmly. And Mr. Morrison, I hope you find an honest way to save your business, because you won't be getting any help from me. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Keisha had prepared me for this. Miss Price, how do you feel about the ruling? I feel vindicated, I said. I feel like the truth has been heard. What message do you have for others who might be facing similar situations? I thought about that, about all the mothers out there who'd sacrificed everything, who'd been made to feel less than, who'd been targeted by the people they loved. Know your worth, I said. It's not determined by how much money you have or what job you do. Your worth comes from your integrity, your strength, your ability to survive. And never, ever let anyone, not even your own children, make you feel small. The story went viral again, but this time the narrative had changed. People were on my side now. The photo of me scrubbing floors 30 years ago became a symbol of hard work and dignity instead of shame. Someone started a hashtag, #VanessaPrice. Women were sharing their own stories of sacrifice and struggle. I got messages from all over the country. From mothers who'd been betrayed by their children. From people who'd been looked down on for their jobs. From everyone who'd ever been made to feel invisible. A week later, I was at home when Darius came by. We hadn't spoken since the trial. Mom, he said, standing on my porch, can I come in? I let him in, and we sat in my living room. I'm sorry, he said. I know I keep saying that, and I know words aren't enough. But Mom, I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are, baby. The divorce is moving forward. Kennedy's family has cut me off completely, which is fine because I never want to see them again. I quit my job at the marketing firm. Turns out Mr. Morrison got me that job, and I don't want anything he touched. I'm starting over. That's good, I said. I wanted to ask you something. He looked nervous. Would you help me? Not with money. I don't want your money. But would you teach me? Teach me how to work hard the way you did? How to have dignity and integrity? I want to learn how to be the man you raised me to be before I lost my way. I looked at my son. He'd broken my heart, but he was still my son. Yes, I said. I'll help you, but Darius, you need to understand something. We're going to rebuild this relationship slowly. I forgive you, but trust takes time. I understand, and Mom, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you, I promise. Over the next few months, things started to settle. The district attorney did press charges against Kennedy and her father for attempted fraud. Kennedy took a plea deal. Her father fought the charges but eventually pled guilty to conspiracy. Their dealerships went bankrupt. The family lost everything. I didn't feel joy about that. I just felt free. Darius got a job at a community center, working with at-risk youth. He was making barely any money, but he was happy. He came to Sunday dinner every week. We were rebuilding, slowly but surely. I started a foundation with some of my money. The Vanessa Price Scholarship Fund for single mothers trying to go to college or start businesses. I wanted to help other women who'd been where I was, invisible, struggling but determined. On the 1-year anniversary of Darius's wedding, I was at home when I got a text from him. Mom, I'm outside. Can I come in? I opened the door and he was standing there with a bouquet of flowers. What's this for? It's for you, because exactly 1 year ago, you showed me what real strength looks like. You taught me that dignity doesn't come from money or status. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone diminish that. I took the flowers, my eyes wet. Also, he said, smiling, I wanted to tell you something. I met someone. Her name is Simone. Actually, she's your old stylist. We ran into each other a few months ago, and we've been talking. She's amazing, Mom. She's kind and real, and she thinks it's incredible that you raised me by yourself. She wants to meet you, if that's okay. I'd love to meet her, I said. And Mom, I told her everything about how I treated you, about the wedding, all of it. I didn't hide anything, and you know what she said? What? She said any man who can admit his mistakes and work to fix them is a man worth knowing. But she also said that if I ever disrespected you again, she'd drop me in a heartbeat. He laughed. I really like her. I pulled my son into a hug. I really like her too, and I haven't even met her yet. That night, I sat on my porch, the porch of the house I owned in the neighborhood where I belonged, and looked up at the stars. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, working 3 jobs, invisible, exhausted, trying so hard to be enough for a son who couldn't see her. I thought about the woman I was now, free, dignified, respected. The money had changed my circumstances, but it hadn't changed who I was. I'd always been Vanessa Price. I'd always had worth. I'd always been somebody. I just finally had the world seeing what I'd always known. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Sister Margaret. Sunday dinner at the church. You better be there. We're celebrating you. I smiled and typed back, I'll be there. Thank you for always seeing me. Because that's what it came down to, really. Being seen, being valued, being respected for who you were, not what you had. And I was all of those things now. I was Vanessa Price, and I was somebody. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.